Hi, good afternoon or good morning. My name is Kendall King. I'm a professor of second language education at the University of Minnesota, and I have been asked to provide a screencast overviewing and describing the process of abstract review. So I'm happy to walk you through this. It's an important part of professional development. It's an important part of all professional conferences, this sort of peer review. So I thank you in advance for your service, and I also thank you for listening to this screencast, which I hope will provide a little bit of information and insight into how this process works. So the first thing that you are going to do is to review the abstracts that have been assigned to you. To make life easy for myself, I like to, if I'm able to, just print them up. That kind of makes the work of toggling between two screens a little bit less painful. So I print up my stack of abstracts, and I usually do a quick review through the criteria. You could just skim those. That just takes a minute or two, and then I like to read each abstract one by one. So I have a sample entitled Language Transfer in the Spanish L2 of an Immersion Student. I think you can access that as well. There should be a link close to where you downloaded this podcast. So I read both the summary and the abstract, but most of my attention is really on the abstract itself. The summary typically is just what appears in the program. It's the abstract that I'm reading closely and evaluating in light of the criteria provided. Okay, so I've read this, you've had a chance to read it, and now I'm going to fill in this awesome Google form by providing my email address, my reviewer name, and you should not worry, your information will not be shared with your reviewers. This is standard conference procedure so that you will be anonymous to everybody except for the conference organizers. So the abstract writer will not know, who commented on their proposal. That's the case for this conference, and it's usually the case for all conferences. Now, the first thing to keep in mind, and as I was saying to the conference organizers, this is always the most confusing part, is be sure you're clear about the scale. Sometimes 1 is positive, sometimes 1 is negative. In this case, 1 means bad. 1 is unsatisfactory, 2 is fair, 3 is adequate, 4 is good, and 5 is outstanding. So you'll be evaluating the abstract on a range of criteria with these numbers in mind. Okay, so the first question. Objectives or purposes are related to the conference theme of second language acquisition. So in this case, it's pretty obvious right from the start that this is about L2, second language learning. It's a case study of an immersion student. So it's clearly related to the conference theme of second language acquisition. I'm going to click on that button and give it a 5. Now I'm moving on to theoretical framework, and it is clear. Here I think what we're looking for is to see whether the author of the abstract has considered related research and has thought about where their research fits in related to second language acquisition theory. Sometimes this means they've cited a particular scholar. Here we see that the author has cited Lindholm, Leary, and Genesee. It's not essential that they have a formal reference there, but we do want to see clear evidence that they have thought about where this fits in the world of second language acquisition theory. This author clearly has, and she has situated her research within the study of immersion, second language acquisition, reception, and output work. So I'm going to give this person a 5. Okay, second question. Third criteria, excuse me, are the research methods and modes of inquiry clearly stated? So here we see that data were collected through natural speech production of an elicited referential tasks, and that the focus was on lexical transfer. We also know that she was working with just one learner of Spanish L2 who was a 6th grader. So, I still have some more questions about this, but given the limits of an abstract, I think she's provided enough information about what kind of data was collected, how she collected it. I could have, honestly, I would like to know a little bit more how much data she collected. I don't see discussion of that. So, pretty strong, but I might give her a 4 because I want to know, how many hours, how many tasks did the learner engage in? All right, point 4, findings and conclusions are supported. Here we see a statement of the findings. That's important. It's really one of the things we're looking for is, does it seem like the author has done the study? Or are they just imagining a future study? So it's useful to have some idea about what the findings were and how she's interpreting them. So she's done both of these and even put her findings in the context of literature by Harley and Swain. So I'm going to give that a 5. I'm sorry, I'm up here at findings and conclusion are supported. We'll give that a 5. All right. The scholarly significance, 5th criteria, scholarly significance, originality, and or creativity of the study of work is apparent. I think she's done a good job with this by thinking about different possible interpretations of her work. And what this work, she's also made an attempt to think about what this work means for our understanding of fossilization, but also what it means potentially for pedagogical strategies for error, right? So this is always a good sign for me because it means there's something of interest both for practitioners and potentially for researchers. So we'll give this one a 5 as well. And then scroll on down. All right, last criteria. Abstract is clearly and professionally presented and is likely to be of interest. So here we're kind of looking to see, are there a bunch of typos? Does that suggest that it was sloppily, hastily presented? And that's important because how somebody writes an abstract gives us some clue about how much preparation they're going to do for their actual presentation. Here there's no typos. It looks very professional. Looks like the author has thought hard about setting this up in a way that will be comprehensible and clear. And so this is suggested in the written work, and it really bodes well for how engaging, how interesting, how comprehensible this abstract will be for the audience. So I'm going to give that a 5. If you have additional comments, I'm sure the conference organizers would be happy to hear them, but it's not required, especially if you're pressed for time. If you think, sometimes people here note if they think this was a really interesting thing, but I'm not quite sure it's a good fit for this conference. Maybe it's more about sociolinguistics or computational linguistics. You might want to note that overall it seems like a strong abstract, but a poor fit. And if you have, usually what we note here is communication you want to give directly to the conference organizers about maybe something you didn't understand, or perhaps there was a formatting glitch, something like that. But any and all comments and suggestions will be read by the conference organizers. So I think that's it. I want to thank you again for your service in reviewing abstracts, and I look forward to seeing many, if not all of you, here in Minnesota in a few months. Thank you.